and welcome to July's Aging Well. I hope everybody is doing well, having a good summer so far. So glad you're here. I say this every month, and every month I totally believe it. We have an amazing presentation for you tonight, and I have some updates. Dr. Ohl, our chief COVID expert at Wake Forest Baptist Health, said we could think about possibly going back in person to some of these, maybe as soon as September. Some of the venues are having a little bit more of an issue, so we're thinking maybe October, but I at least wanted to give you that update that could be coming. But we're not going to lose connection with those of you who are joining us virtual, who may not be living in the Winston-Salem area. So I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it. We're going to stay connected. We've actually expanded where we've been invited to present live to the Clemens area, which is another suburb of Winston-Salem. But we're going to figure this out. We did not know how to do Zoom events, Zoom webinars when we started this, and by hook or by crook, we're figuring it out. So we're going to keep you posted. But for now, let's keep planning on meeting this way. And again, I will let you know when we start evolving into something a little bit more, but do make plans for that now. Be thinking about it. And also, Wake Forest University is doing an oral history program. Now, this is different than Renolda that I told y'all about several months ago, but I will send the email out to everyone on this call. They just want to interview older adults from the Winston-Salem area to see how we all functioned, how we got through the pandemic. And so this is an undergraduate student that's doing this project. And she said that they could pay $25 gift cards if people are willing to sit down, spend some time and share their story. So anyway, it's just something more to think about. You know, we want to age well, and part of that is telling our stories. So this could be something fun. But let's get on to it. Our Eating Well segment tonight, I want y'all to know I'm always thinking about you and thinking about aging well. And for my husband's birthday, several months back, I took him to this restaurant. So it's called the Prescott. It is in Kernersville. It was a wonderful, wonderful meal. And I got the idea for it from Our State magazine. And so I'm really thrilled that Trey Prescott allowed me into his kitchen, and he created the dish that is featured in that edition of Our State magazine. So I hope you enjoy this. You should already have the recipe. And I will tell you, it looked amazing. So let's get on with it. Trey, take us into the kitchen.
Thanks, Deb. Hi, Aging Well. Welcome to the Prescott. I've got some wonderful things to prepare for you today. Why don't you come on in and we'll try them out. All right, now we're in the kitchen. Let's get started. We're going to be featuring the dish that was featured in Our State magazine, the March issue of 2021. It is our tempura grouper with sauteed local kale over pecan cheddar grits. The first thing we're going to start out with is the grits that takes the longest to cook. What we've done here today is just softened up some stone ground grits into polenta with a little hot water and let it sit. And we're going to add cream, some nice local cream from Homeland Creamery, and some pecans, about 1/4 cup. To that, we're going to add about another cup of hot water. We'll get that all stirred around and soft. Put that on the heat. Nice low heat for 35 minutes, and your pecans will be done. Constantly stir them to make sure that the pecans get chopped up. And then once they're done, at the end, about 30-35 minutes, we're going to add some nice sharp white cheddar and some really good whole butter at the end. Also with this dish is the local kale. We like to use a lot of local ingredients here at the Prescott. Five Wood Farms is a farm that's located not even 2 miles away from us that provides us with several wonderful leafy vegetations. We got our microgreens, our salad greens, and these wonderful baby Russian kale from them. It's just one of the wonderful ingredients, just like this honey that we celebrate here at the Prescott. So next I'll be doing the sauteed kale. All right. Nice cast iron pan that we're going to get nice and hot. We're going to put in just a little bit of good whole butter, about a tablespoon of garlic, and 4 cups of our washed and chopped local kale. Try to toss that around in there so the garlic doesn't get burned real quick, but the moisture in the kale should wilt out quickly, and it should give you enough temperature change in your pan that your garlic won't burn. Constantly keep it moving. And that cast iron is going to deliver a lot of very good flavor to the kale, and as well as retain the heat, so it's going to give it a nice crust when the moisture comes out. At this point, I'm going to season it with about a tablespoon of sugar and just a pinch of salt. Adds a nice sizzle to it. And just to add an extra layer of flavor, we're going to deglaze with just some nice cream sherry. And we're going to finish off with a nice couple of good tablespoons of butter right at the end, so it doesn't melt, and it's nice and soft butter, so it'll incorporate real well into the kale like a sauce. And we'll go ahead and cut our heat off at that point and just let the residual heat from the kale melt the butter, and the sherry, the alcohol's cooked off, and now it's nice and soft. And we'll just let that finish in there. As you can see, there's a nice pan sauce made from the butter and the sherry, and just a little bit of moisture that comes out of the kale. We'll let that stay there while we drop in our tempura grouper. All right, now the main part of the dish is the tempura battered grouper. We like to do our tempura batter with a little bit of luxury here at the Prescott, by adding just a little bit of champagne at the end. And what we have here is a traditional tempura batter, which is a Japanese style batter made of egg yolks, flour, cornstarch, and cold ice water. It's important to keep it really cold. And then here at the Prescott, right at the end, we like to add a little champagne, just to add a little extra bubble and flavor to it. And we have our nice piece of grouper here. Preferably off the North Carolina coast or South Carolina, but we have gotten this one from Florida. All we do for this to keep a nice light batter is we didn't do any pre-breading, so we just went right from the fish right into the batter, and we're going to season it with salt when it comes out, so we don't have to worry about the salt falling off. I'm using a glove in this case, but we're just going to dredge it nice in the champagne batter, and then we'll drop it into the hot oil over there. All right, we've got our oil at a nice 375 degrees. A candy thermometer on the side we just removed. It'll tell the temperature of it for you perfectly. And all you're going to do is, like I said, with a glove on, it's the safest. Make sure it's got a nice batter, let it drip off. And then the chef's secret is run it along the edge to get any excess batter off. And then you're going to slowly drop it into the oil. Not all at one time, just letting it kind of gently fry a little bit, and then we drop the whole thing. And it's wonderful little protector, as usually your hands are covered in batter, as it won't get burned right there by the hot oil. Once you got it in there, 5 to 7 minutes, should be nice and golden brown. And we'll take it out, generously hit it with salt, kosher salt, on the outside of it, because the oils that are still residual on the outside will help it stick to it. If you remember what we were doing with the kale earlier, we had mentioned deglazing. And deglazing is just what chefs call removing the fond, or the foundation, the little bits that have stuck to the bottom of the pan. And when we add a liquor or any kind of liquid, it helps remove those bits and helps become part of the sauce. And that's just one of the little chef tips that we have here at the restaurant. All right, now it's time to put it all together. We're going to start with the base of the plate is our grits. And it's just, just a reminder of our secret, putting pecans in the grits and letting them cook low and slow, constantly stirring them, breaking up the pecans little bit by little bit, adds such a nice nuttiness. And it's quite an accident that we stumbled upon it, but we absolutely love it here. And the aged white cheddar that we add at the end adds to the nuttiness and adds a wonderful bite with it. We're going to put the grits on first. And we finished them off with some more whole butter. Just lop those in there. And with cooking that long, the pecans have gotten soft and the grits have gotten all nice together. And these are stone ground grits that we've got from the old mill, Guilford Mill. Next, we're going to add our wonderful kale, as you can see, sitting in our sauce. And we're just going to take all that beautiful sauce and all that kale, just lay that right on there. Wonderful smell to it. And then our wonderful champagne piece of grouper, tempura grouper. We're just going to drain that on a paper towel or a kitchen towel that we have. And like I said, nice sprinkling of salt right on the top. Make sure you get all the pieces of grouper. And we'll just layer that on top. And we're just going to finish off our wonderful tempura grouper with a nice lemon caper tartar sauce that we make here at the restaurant. But it's just a simple mayonnaise, chopped capers, lemon juice, red onion, and a little dill pickle relish. And to finish off our dish, we're going to use some of our wonderful locally grown edible flowers here that we get from Derber Greens. We have some nasturtium that adds just a wonderful bite and lots of different arrays of flavor as you bite into it, and they just make the dish pop. And even though you might not have edible flowers at your house, it's still a very easy dish to execute in your home. Or you can come enjoy it here at the Prescott. We're located in downtown Kernersville at 126 South Main Street. We hope you enjoy it. Come to enjoy it.
Well, I know that I put edible flowers on everything that I make, which those of you who know me know that I am not the chef in our family. That would be my sweet husband. But I was so excited about talking about our future of coming together again that I forgot to thank members of our team that, believe me, without them, this would never, ever have happened. So thank you to Courtney Hayes, Audrey Bell Farrow, and Tom Roth. Y'all are the brains behind this operation. So thank you so much. Now, on to our second segment. I love to dig in the dirt. That's why I'll never have fingernails. They'll always look like this. Now, I'm no gardener, but I do love to play, and I love to experiment with new flowers. And so we have got something so cool here in Winston. For those of you who don't live here, just take a virtual trip with us. And the next time you're here, make this a point to go see our Renolda Gardens. There are materials that are available for you at the garden. I will be sending some PDFs to you as well. And I just have to tell you to edit this down to around 15 minutes, maybe a little bit more. I shot over an hour's worth of video, and there was not one thing that I wanted to cut out, because John Rothling is the director of the garden, gave us such a fabulous tour that I want you to sit back, relax, enjoy this, and just know there is so, so much more to see when you get to visit Renolda Gardens.
Thanks, Deb. And I want to welcome everyone from AgingWell to Renolda Gardens. I'm John Rothling, the director of Renolda Gardens. I'm hoping that I can kind of open the doors to you, both virtually and hopefully in person in the future, that you'll get excited to come out here and see what I'm so excited about with what's happening here. If you've been here before, things have changed a little bit. If you've never been here, we want you to come out here and see what all the buzz is about. So right now we are standing on the east side of the garden. Off to my right, I guess your left, you'd be seeing what is called the East Garden feature, which, for lack of a better term, is really just, it's a beautiful arbor. This actually underwent restoration about two and a half years ago, but the place we're standing in has been one of the biggest projects we've undertaken in a number of years at Renolda. This space is framed, just the space we're standing in right now, there are 19 weeping cherries in this space, and this is part of the complement of 44 weeping cherries that we just brought back to the gardens. This was a feature that surrounded the lower formal gardens. When they had the restoration in '95, they unfortunately were not able to track down trees that really met the specifications. We were lucky this past year that we were able to secure the trees, and it's brought back an element of the garden that's been gone for possibly 50 years. This was a feature that actually you can go back to old newspaper stories that regaled of having to hire extra security for the number of people that would come to Renolda to see the cherries in bloom. What we're pitching this is you don't have to go to DC for a cherry blossom festival anymore. And what we've brought back is a border filled with Chinese snowball viburnum, which will happen in early spring, which will also rebloom in the fall. A number of different types of hydrangea paniculata, which will, white flowers, but blooming throughout the summer. There's a few other things in here. I've incorporated crinum lilies, other lilies, fragrant gladiolus, a lot of different bulbs, so we have something going on throughout the entire summer with mostly a white theme in this space. So we're really excited about what this is going to become. Obviously we just replanted it, so it'll get just better, much like a fine wine. It'll get better with age. But we're the response of people walking back into this garden has been tremendous, and it's fired up the staff that's here. They're excited about what's happening, and it's just a fantastic space to come into and just relax and take in the sights and the scents of Renolda Gardens. So we've come out of the East Garden and walked down into the lower formal gardens, and what we're standing in right now is what's called the Blue and Yellow Garden. This garden, when it was designed with quadrants, so there were the lower greenhouse rose beds, which are back behind us. They're roses from the early 1900s, late 1800s, many of the old-fashioned roses. The space we're standing in, like I said, is the Blue and Yellow Garden. Across the way is the Pink and White Garden. So you had 4 quadrants that line this lower garden. But what you're going to find when you come here is just something in bloom, ideally all the time. And we're constantly playing around with things. I basically tell my horticulturalists, as long as it's blue or yellow, I don't care what it is. We just want the garden to be beautiful. And it's been amazing to see, as we try new things, some things work, some things don't. I'm trying to bring things in that people aren't familiar with, because I love it when people come into the gardens and go, I've never seen that before. That means that I'm doing something right. But what you'll also see when you come into the space is a lot of, not changes, but refreshing. Behind me, you can see the tea houses. These were a feature of the garden that was influenced, we think, because Catherine Reynolds had gone to an exposition on the West Coast that had, much more of an Asian influence. So these are the tea houses that actually delineate the lower formal gardens from what is the upper garden, which is the fruit, cut flower, and nicer vegetable garden. We'll stop in there briefly. And what's wonderful, you can stand out here, you can probably hear on the audio, the birds chirping. The garden, whether there's people in here, there's always life in the garden. There's insects buzzing, there's birds chirping. But it's just been wonderful. Even during the pandemic, at its worst, Ronolda was full of life because this is a healthy place. This is, we're standing in the 4 acres of the formal gardens, but there's 130 more acres here. And what we've seen over this time period is actually higher visitation than ever. We've seen people that have come out here and this has been their safe place to sit down, to set lawn chairs, set them 6 feet apart, connect with people. And we're hoping that continues, this excitement about being outdoors, reconnecting with nature. It's something that we're hopeful for, that this is something that will be long-term. So we've actually walked just right across the garden from the blue and yellow garden into the pink and white garden. Again, this is one of the 4 quadrants of the lower formal gardens. And again, as long as it's pink or white, I've told my horticulturalists, go for it. We've started incorporating things that haven't traditionally been in here. There's wonderful white dahlias flowering in the gardens right now. We've got, flowering tobacco, which kind of harkens back to the origins of this estate. It was the R.J. Reynolds estate. So R.J. Reynolds tobacco, I think it's fitting to have some flowering tobacco in the garden. So we picture spring at Ronolda to be a series of crescendos happening throughout the spring. Reimagining the garden with a hint of always looking back to the original designs, which happened in 1917. And we're excited about, taking the history of this garden, but making it relevant to today. We've just actually walked out of the lower formal garden. We came through the tea houses and now we're in the fruit, cut flower, and nicer vegetable garden. This space actually still has much of the vegetable gardens. We'll highlight that in just a minute. But in the upper part of this space, we have what began as the All-American Selections Rose Garden. That program went defunct, but once you have a rose garden, it's kind of like the mafia, you never get out. I think, I would probably be run out of town if I got rid of the rose gardens, but you'll see two spaces on either side of this path of modern roses, tea roses, grandifloras, floribundas, and this is maintained on a perpetual basis. We do try to pay attention to what roses are doing the best, what ones are doing the worst. Those get shovel pruned at the end of the season. And it's our goal to actually share that information with our constituents to let them know, hey, this rose is probably not worth spending your money on. But where I'm standing is almost dead center of this garden. It breaks up, it's again, very similar to the lower garden, basically divided into 4 quadrants. We have, a space that constantly changes. It's been a pollinator garden, it's been a winter interest garden. This year it's a hummingbird garden. We have cottage gardens that just showcase how you can grow so many different things in different ways. It's always a combination of herbs, vegetables, flowers. We just want it to be a beautiful and inspiring place, especially after coming out of the worst part of the pandemic, of having this beautiful, inspiring place that you could walk through with a good degree of safety of being outdoors. We change it in the summer to summer annuals, but this is where I get to kind of play and try different things and bring in all the weird plants that no one's ever seen that are, constantly going, what is that? So this is, it's a mixture of common annuals, but then a few oddballs thrown in. But we're pretty excited about what it's going to be this year. So we're going to turn around and look north at where the vegetable gardens are and just talk about that just briefly. Okay, so like I said, we were turning around and now looking north, but what we're actually, like I said, we're looking north, and on this half of the fruit, cut flower, and nicer vegetable garden, this is actually a space that's kind of changed a little bit in how we use it. But last year when we couldn't have volunteers here, what do we do with all this produce? And this was the start of what my vision is for Ronolda Gardens. We actually ended up partnering with HOPE, which is an organization within the Winston-Salem community, connecting people in need with fresh vegetables and fruits and healthy food. And last year we donated 1,500 pounds to that organization. And As my staff has gotten used to, every year the bar goes higher, so we hope to donate more this year. We've actually come out of the 4 acres of the formal gardens, which is something that, quite honestly, that's what I thought Renolda Gardens was, and I'm delighted to say that it's so much more. One of the things that's wonderful about this place is there's plenty of spaces to walk, and for all abilities in a sense, because what we're standing on right now, it's actually the driveway, but it's a nice paved surface. We have a number of people, we have dog walkers out here constantly. And what's beautiful is during the spring, this bed over here to the right is filled with hundreds of thousands of daffodils. It will absolutely make you weep when you see it come into flower. And then in the fall, there's a bulb called spider lily, hurricane lily, sometimes if you're a little risque, naked ladies, because they flower without the foliage. But it's these wonderful red flowered bulbs that are just spectacular. But what you can do is you can come out of the formal gardens, walk along this drive. If you want to continue further up, I'll showcase where that changes. It will change into a wood chip path that goes around, and there's up to 2 miles of trails if you wanted to continue on that. If you want to just stay on a paved surface, what's wonderful is you can do a circuit. You can come down this drive and just hang a left at what I call Daffodil Island, because that's the easiest way to describe it. And just go down the cross drive, circle back down heading towards Renolda House, and it's all paved. So it's fantastic that you've got, if you need a hard surface, it's there for it. We have a number of regulars that are out here. One lady's pushing her mother in a wheelchair. And it's just a fantastic place to get out, to breathe fresh air, to see a beautiful space, and to just relax. Okay, so we've actually come up the paved drive a little bit, and where we are is basically right across from the front entrance to Renolda House, and right across the street from the entrance into Grayland. And one of the things is the proximity to Renolda Road. One thing that's unique about the gardens that we were standing in earlier is, much like, actually different from most gardens where the estate would have the garden tucked behind the house just for the family. Catherine actually had the gardens placed more close to the road because she wanted them to be an asset to the community. But as you can see, we've come up the drive, and you can see the pathway material has changed. We try to put down wood chips at least once a year, keep it updated. But it's not as sturdy a surface. But this will continue and wrap around the entire property. And where we're standing is actually the start of a 16-acre meadow. We've got some interpretive signage that actually goes around the meadow that you can stop and get a little bit of education. Of course, as with any place, there are rules. We do ask that if you come out here, if you have a dog, that you obviously have the dog on the leash. But it's just a fantastic place. You can see, nature. Then you can see kind of cultivated nature, where we've got 2 different beekeepers that have hives up here. But there are a few benches scattered along the way, so it isn't like you've got to keep going. You can, get to a bench, sit down, enjoy the space for a while, watch the birds. We have a number of people in the Audubon Society that come out here. This is a fantastic place to see all manner of birds. I've been out here right at dawn, and it's been magical because there's barred owls that I've heard up here. I've heard great horned owls further down into the woods. It can be magical at dawn with the mist coming off the meadow. It's just spectacular. So just as I alluded to earlier, we do have interpretive signage scattered a little bit around the meadow and some other areas in the what we call the greater gardens, which is the other 130 acres. But one thing that you'll see kind of scattered about is, of course, butterfly weed, and this is a fantastic pollinator area. But this is a fantastic sign that actually talks about pollination, talks about native plants and things like that, of having these available. And that's one thing that we've been trying to do with, constantly adding more butterfly weed, more, just things like black-eyed Susans, Rudbeckia. There was penstemon in here earlier. There's asters, there's baptisia, and we're trying to just keep building this up. Okay, so we've actually come further down the trails, and we've headed into kind of the interior part of the trail system that winds around Renolda. And we're actually standing right in the middle of what is, we call it the Wildflower Garden. And was started I think in the 70s with some people, volunteers bringing plants in. And the diversity that's actually present in this area is amazing. So we've actually come almost full circle, and we're down at I would say, one of the more northerly points on the trail. What's directly behind me is Renolda House, and that gives you a little bit of perspective of, we've kind of done one big loop, and here at the bottom of the loop where we're standing, where Lake Catherine used to be, directly behind me is Renolda House. This is just right off the trail as you're walking out, getting ready to come into Renolda Village. Right off to your left is Renolda House, which the view shed used to look straight down the hill at Lake Catherine. And we're going to turn around and you'll see what was the boathouse, which is our last little stop of the day. But this is the boathouse, which was actually, in its day, there was a 16-acre lake behind me, which was Lake Catherine. We do have a vision to restore this area because it was integral in what happened on the estate, the life of the estate. RJ had his barbecue, right down here for the company picnic. And it's just a wonderful space. We have a lot of, like I alluded to earlier, birders will come down here because the wetlands of a vibrant space for wildlife. There's a beaver that we've seen go through. And it's just amazing to take in all the different things. So I hope that's given you a glimpse of all the things that are around here. It's out in the open. You can wander, you can wander to your heart's content. There's plenty of places to sit and relax. It's just, I think that's what makes me so excited about being here, is that we have such a wide array of things available to you. This is a place to connect, whether it's connecting with others or connecting with nature. It's a special place. Really happy that we have been here for the community throughout all this mess of the pandemic. We're a resource. I always, kind of compare us to what Central Park is for New York City. I like to think of Renolda as being that for our community. And, I, of course, encourage you in many ways, become a friend of Renolda Gardens. That helps support us. That helps support all the activities we do. It also keeps you engaged on what's going on over here. And there's a lot happening. As we like to say, there's a lot to explore when you come out here to Renolda. So I'm John Rothling. I'm director of Renolda Gardens, and I extend my invitation. Come out and see what we've got.
That day was absolutely magical. And truthfully, I shot over an hour's worth of video. And that was still just giving a bird's eye view of everything. It is the most wonderful, wonderful place. And I don't think he mentioned, but there's absolutely no charge to visit the gardens. So they are here for our community. They're here for everyone to enjoy. And I know I love going out there. It is just one of my happy places. So anyway, now on to our educational speaker. I want to ask y'all, I happen to be married to a physician. And so if something were to happen to me, if I started having what may be early signs for a heart attack, he would probably know what to do. But would I? And my answer is right now, no. And so I started thinking about this to say, what could we all learn? How could we all be better spouses, better friends, better community members? Would you know what to do if someone you were with is having a heart attack? So we are just tickled to death that we have Sandy Tysinger here. And she is a very seasoned cardiac nurse at Wake Forest Baptist Health. And she is going to share with us a lot of these things that we need to know to be more adept at responding appropriately. So Sandy, and by the way, remember, if you have questions for Sandy as she's going through her presentation, put them in the Q&A section, and she will be happy to address those as we go along.
Yes, thank you so much. I am very honored that you all invited me here to talk. Talking about this subject is such near and dear to me, as I lost both my parents to heart disease. So for me, this is a very personal subject. So I'm very honored that you all asked me. And the other thing is, I would much rather you see me this way than in the hospital, because if you've come in the hospital, then you've had a cardiac event. So let's keep you out for that cardiac event. So one of the things we want to talk about is what is a heart attack and what are the signs and symptoms. So a heart attack is really when a piece of plaque has broken off and has caused a blockage, and your heart needs blood, oxygenated blood to pump, and it's not getting it because of this blockage. That's a very high level view, but that's pretty much what it is. And when that happens, you develop signs and symptoms. So let's talk about those. Signs and symptoms. Most of us have seen the TV movies and commercials and so forth where someone's having a heart attack and they grasp their chest and they can't talk and they can't breathe and they fall down to the ground. And so that can happen, but it doesn't always happen that way. So yes, there is chest pain, but it's really like chest pressure. It is like a heavy brick is sitting on your chest, or there's a belt around your chest, tightening your belt, tightening your chest. Some say, yeah, it feels like an elephant is sitting on my chest. And that is one of the most common signs, is that chest pain, chest pressure. You may break out in a sweat, and you may get nauseated, you may have vomiting. Those are our most common signs and symptoms. I'm going to stop right here and say, if you or anyone that you're with is experiencing these signs and symptoms, please, 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 I'm begging you, do not drive them to the hospital, because you can't perform CPR and drive your car at the same time. And it is a very emotional time, especially if it's a loved one, and you don't need to be driving. So pick your phone up and call 911, tell them where you are, and they will be there and what the signs and symptoms are. That will help them give information to the paramedics. So they'll be prepared when they pull up wherever you are, your house or Reynolda Gardens or the Prescott or anywhere. So that way they can be prepared to care for your loved ones. So you will have the chest pain, the chest pressure. But I always like to add this, men and women do not always present the same. Men tend to have the chest pain, the chest pressure, the nausea, the vomiting. Women, on the other hand, got to be just a little bit different. We're a little bit special, and we will have that. But a lot of times, women's pain could be in their back. So their chest pain could be kind of radiating to their back. We will have nausea and vomiting. You could also have jaw pain. And women have experienced this sense of impending doom, like something bad is going to happen. They don't know what it is, but they get this feeling that something bad is going to happen. They may get very short of breath. The other thing women will experience is extreme fatigue, very, very tired. Now, all of us women say the same thing. I'm so tired at the end of the day. I'm so tired. We say it all the time. I'm so tired, because we feel like we have to be the keepers of everybody. So we do more than we should. And because that's our makeup. So it is a difference of just being tired at the end of the day and just sheer exhaustion. Women will have nausea and vomiting along with men, and they will have more shortness of breath than men will. The other sign is indigestion. Sometimes men and women will feel like they have a severe case of indigestion, and they'll take Tums or Maalox or some type of antacid, and it doesn't go away. When that happens, go to your local emergency department. I would much rather you go there and they say it's not a heart attack than be at home and have a heart attack at home. And the reason why we say that is the damage to your heart happens within the first 2 hours of your heart attack. And the longer you stay at home, the more damage that could happen. So we really want you to go in and get checked out. Women tend not to want to go in because, you know, we hate to bother anybody. How many times do you talk to somebody and say, I'm sorry to bother you. I hate to bother you, but I'm so sorry to bother you, but could you help me? But women say that all the time. And so therefore we tend to not to go and get ourselves checked out. That's why there's a higher mortality rate for women than for men. So women, take care of yourself and get checked out. And heart attacks are caused by a lot of different things. As I explained to you earlier, there's a piece of plaque that breaks off because we've had bad diets and we've had this fatty stuff build up in our arteries, and it breaks off and it causes a blockage. But there's some things we just can't control. With that being said, it's things like hereditary. For example, I told you I've lost both my parents to heart disease. So that doesn't mean my risk factors are doubled. It really means my risk factors are almost quadruple, if not more. If you have a sedentary lifestyle, if you sit and watch TV all day, or sit and read, or knit, or crochet, or do needlepoint, or whatever you do, but you just sit, that increases, that's a risk factor. Get up and go out to Renolda Gardens and do your needlework or read out there, but get out and walk and move. The other risk factor is your weight. Are you overweight? You know, the majority of Americans are overweight, and it happens at very young ages. We will see young children, and I am talking 12, 13, 14 years old, that are the beginnings of heart disease because of their weight and their diet. So your weight. Now, we all want to be skinny, but that's not necessarily healthy either. So have a weight that you have discussed with your physician that is healthy for you. And your physician can help you be in touch with a nutritionist, a dietitian, and find a good healthy eating. Healthy eating means low fat, low sodium, low fried foods, healthy foods, fruits, vegetables, things like that. The other part of risk factors are hereditary, like I explained, whether you're male or female, whether your culture. Unfortunately, African Americans have a higher risk than their Caucasian counterparts. Our Spanish friends also have a high risk too. So your culture plays a big part of that. Your race plays a big part of that, and all of that just leads up to risk factors that you can't change. So because my parents both have heart disease, and I am over 50, way over 50, if I have a lot, but I am not sedentary. So I eat healthy and I exercise. So that is a lot of things that that I do to prevent my risk factors and try to counteract those. Atypical presentations are people who sometimes have joint pain. So for example, we have had patients come in that said the only signs and symptoms I had were wrist pain and elbow pain. And then that was the beginning. So that was like an early presentation. They said they noticed their wrist hurt and their elbows hurt. Then they started with some chest discomfort. Then it progressed into nausea and vomiting. So, you know, as you heard me say, they started off with wrist pain and elbow pain, and then it progressed to nausea and vomiting, and it also had the chest pain. It doesn't matter if that's the early stage or really where you grasp your chest and fall over. No matter where you are, you need to go get checked out. But one thing I always like to talk about, because some people get mixed up, what is the difference between a heart attack and cardiac arrest? There's two different, they're different. A heart attack is what I just described. where you have that blockage. You have oxygenated blood that's not getting to where it needs to be. And the pain that you feel in your chest comes from that heart starving for oxygenated blood. Cardiac arrest, well, think about it. Arrest means to stop. Your heart stops beating. Those are the people who have to be shocked, have to have CPR. That is cardiac arrest. So they're two different things. A heart attack can lead to cardiac arrest if you're not treated soon enough. That is why we say go to the hospital as soon as you're experiencing any of these signs or symptoms. As I explained, women are the very last to want to seek treatment, but we really, really need to go and seek treatment as much as we can. The damage to a heart after a heart attack is not something that you can fix. Once the heart's damaged, it's damaged. But it doesn't mean that you can't make the rest of your heart feel overcome the damaged part. And you can overcome a heart attack if you follow your healthy diet and symptoms. Some women have said that they only get nauseated and have the jaw pain. So jaw pain is here in the joint, as I explained. I think I've covered the majority of it. The only other thing I would feel if you all would do is go and get a CPR class. They will teach you how to do hands-only CPR. And basically what that is as you pump on a chest like this, and you have to find the mark. So everybody can do it to themselves. If you're sitting in your chair, trace your rib cage up till it meets in the middle, and then go about 2 fingers above that middle part. And that's where you're going to put the heel of your hand, and you're going to compress down, and you're going to do it with some force because you want to press down about 2 inches, about 2 inches. So it takes some force. So they will teach you how to do that in a CPR class, and they will teach you what to do if someone's experiencing a heart attack. I will tell you that the state of North Carolina, out of 50 states, is number 24 for heart disease. So there are 23 other states that are worse than we are, which I guess is better. I still like us to be closer to 50. And we lose over 600,000 people in America a year to heart disease. So I'm going to ask you to take a look at what you eat, take a look at your lifestyle, take a look at what you do every day. If you get up and walk around the outside of your house twice, that's a great start. I want you to get up and move so you can help reduce the risks of a heart attack. And I appreciate you all letting me talk so much and giving you things. I've condensed this hour talk to about 15 minutes. So I hope I've covered and at least given you an idea of what to do and what a sign and symptom of a heart attack is. And I would love to entertain any questions or any comments from anyone if they have any.
Well, I know that we have some questions.
Okay.
So our first question is, might a woman present with these symptoms and they go away and then never return? Does that mean that it was something else, or it's continuing inside without symptoms?
Great question. Normally, for major symptoms do not go away. The nausea, vomiting may go away, a little sweating may go away, but if you are having if you're having at least 2 of those symptoms, you need to go get checked out. Again, it's much safer for you to get checked out because they will draw blood and do an EKG and tell you it's something else than to be home and have your heart attack. I don't know if you live alone or if you live with somebody, but it's much safer for you to do that.
So we have another question. Someone wants to know, if you do have a heart attack, can you ever get back to the lifestyle that you had before? And not the bad eating, but just being active, enjoying your life.
Absolutely. There is absolutely no reason why you cannot get back to where you were. In fact, that's something we encourage here at Wake. And here, once you've had a heart attack, we give you all kinds of information and instructions about how to get back to your lifestyle. We also have cardiac rehab that will help you get back into your lifestyle. So we want you to get back to a healthier lifestyle than you were before, and be as active, if not more, than you were before.
We have another question wanting to know, where are CPR classes being offered?
Great question. You can get on the American Heart Association webpage, and they can guide you to some classes. And then you can call here at Wake Forest, and they can give you a list of instructors that may come to your home, or to if you are in a church, and may do hands-only class for you there. So that is something you absolutely can do.
So I have a question, because I took CPR 1,000 years ago when I was in college, and it seems like the compressions are faster now and there's no breath. So
Well,
when did all that change?
That changed, probably about 5 years ago. The compressions are faster, and American Heart Association always does research on CPR. So they're always trying to find better ways of doing CPR and a better way to save a life. So we have started with the no hand CPR for our lay people, for the public. No breath CPR, hands only, I'm sorry. Because when we started having a lot more communicable diseases, a lot of people were very uncomfortable breathing into somebody's mouth. Here at the hospital, we have equipment that we can use one's called a bag valve mask, where we can squeeze it and give the oxygen. Most people don't keep that in their home. So that's why we go hands only, because really the most important thing is to get that blood circulating through the body, through the most important organs, which are your heart, your brain, your lungs, and your liver, all the kidneys, all those important organs.
So, and one more question. Well, actually, we have a couple more questions.
Sure.
So if someone you're with passes out and you don't know why they've passed out, they have just passed out. How do you assess? I'm not a medical professional. How would I assess, is this cardiac? Is it something else? When is it appropriate, or could you do more damage than good?
So there's a couple of steps you do. Great question. Is one, if you find somebody passed out, you shake them and call their name, or say, "Hey, mister, are you okay?" And they may or may not respond. If they don't respond, one thing we tell folks is look for signs of life. If I don't have a pulse, my lips are going to be blue. My fingernail beds, now most women put polish on their fingernails, but my fingernail beds will be blue. The tips of my fingers will be blue or gray. The color of my face may be blue or gray. There's no signs of life there. That's when you're going to start doing the compression. But if I'm pink and healthy, and if you squeeze my thumb and my skin turns back to the normal color that it is, then I've got signs of life, or I've got a pulse.
Okay. All right. Got some more questions. Hang on. I'm jumping
Sure.
in. What cardiac screenings should someone over the age of 50 have? And are there special screenings just for women?
Great question. There are not special screenings at this time for women, but there's lots of research going on. But there's lots of screenings out there. There are some cardiac calcium CTs that can be done. And I know every once in a while, we will do a special here, and most of our physicians are aware of it. And I've actually had it done this year where you go in, it takes 10 minutes. You lie down on the table and the machine goes over you like a special x-ray, and it looks for blockages in your arteries. And mine was a 0, which was great. The lower the better, the higher the number, the not so good. So there's lots of screenings. There's cardiac screenings. We actually have a physician here that does a lot of cardiac preventive teaching and medicine. And he is one, especially if you have risk factors like I do, then he is there to really keep you from getting to the point of having a heart attack.
That's great.
And
We've
I
got-
can send you his information, Deb, afterwards if you want.
Perfect.
Send
And
it
I will
out.
include that with the mailing after this
Perfect.
presentation.
I'll be happy to
then-
send you that information.
Okay. And our last question, do you recommend taking baby Advil as a way to prevent heart attacks?
So research shows that baby aspirin, there's a difference. Baby aspirin is one that you can use to help prevent heart attacks. And one of the things they say is if you are at home and you really think you're having a heart attack, chew an aspirin. Aspirin, as most folks know, can thin your blood a little bit. Now, those who take aspirin every day know if you bump your hand, it bruises easily and so forth because it does a little thin. So if you take a baby aspirin every day, it helps keep your blood thin and those platelets that are in your blood from sticking together, and that helps keep that blood clot from forming. So usually they recommend a baby aspirin every day.
Okay. Well, Sandy, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. I know that I've certainly learned a lot, and I hope you have too. And so I want to make a date with everyone who's watching right now. I would love for you to join us in August on the 10th. We have Dr. Steve Krzyzewski. He is the director of our Healthy Aging program. And his talk is delaying age possible? So, my whole philosophy is I want to age well. I want to live well and love well and be well. So, that's the whole idea behind this series. And when you have ideas, not if, but when you have ideas for future topics that you'd like to see, please let me know. Shoot me an email. Everyone has received an email from me, so all my contact information is on there. And let me know what you'd like to hear, because this is your program and we are just the facilitators of it. So until August, be safe, have fun, and enjoy the rest of your summer. Thanks a lot.